Hello and welcome to Caffè Fibonacci. I'm Tim Cole. This is my co-host, Rufus Deutschler.
Hello.
And
welcome back.
It's a special time of year. It's a special season because something incredible has happened. What season is it, Rufus?
It's the Suite Nouveau.
It's
season.
Suite Nouveau. The Suite Nouveau is out.
Yes, absolutely.
Here's to Suite Nouveau.
Suite Nouveau.
CS4, Creative Suite CS4 has been announced and is available, most likely, at this time.
Most likely.
So what we're going to be doing here is going very, very fast in our next few episodes and showing you high points of the new CS4 release.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do first is start with some InDesign. And actually, the first thing we're going to show is something that's not just an InDesign, it's across the suite. And we have a standard user interface across the Creative Suite. The palettes work the same way. The windows work the same way so that everybody has a consistent experience, and there's new stuff in this suite-wide UI.
Everywhere.
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do is look at this new interface in InDesign. Here's what my InDesign CS4 looks like, and Mac users, brace yourselves, because it may be the case that when you come to your InDesign, you'll see that your whole InDesign is in a single application window. And that is because you've turned on the application frame option. This is a new feature that puts all of your InDesign application in a single window, which Windows users have been used to for a long time.
Yep.
But don't worry, Mac users, because you can turn this off and kind of revert back into classic mode with everything where all your windows float and
Well, although I
tile.
don't advise for that because it's so much more useful to have everything organized in a single window.
Well, it may be a matter of taste, but let's go back to the single application frame and look at this. Now, what I've got here, I've got multiple documents open, and you'll notice that they're tabbed across the top. So it's very, very easy to go in there and toggle between applications. There's less of a need to keep tiling them over and over. If I want to tile them, there's a way to do that, and we'll see that in just a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down a couple of documents here and just have one document, because here's a fun way to use this. If I want to edit the text in this document, and I use Command or Control Y to go into my story editor, what I can do is I can take my story editor window and dock it in the same panel as my magazine publication, and then I can go up here to the application bar. Application bar is a new feature that contains a lot of features that you might use over and over, but just makes them a little bit more accessible to you by sticking them right in your face. Right in your face. And here under the Advanced tab here, or this pull down that says Advanced, are all of my workspaces. So right now I am in the workspace named Advanced, but I can change my workspaces just by pulling that down and choosing a new workspace. This little field up here is where you enter a query to go into the online help. What's new and exciting about the online help for CS4 is that users can actually annotate our online help. So not only will you get the stuff that Adobe has written, but also tips and tricks and experiences from other Creative Suite users, which is nice.
It's a community.
Yeah, it's the online help community. And then over here we have some other little buttons. First, let's start all the way over here. This little button toggles you to bridge, and this little pull down here controls the visibility of things, and it's contextually sensitive so that if I'm in a story editor window or in a document window, I'll see different things. So here's the visibility controls the visibility from my rulers, frame edges, all that stuff. This one here controls what mode of preview I'm in. Am I in normal display, preview mode? Do I want to see the bleed and slug? All that control, which used to be just only down here at the bottom of the toolbar.
Well, it still is.
Is still there, and you can also use the keyboard shortcut. But now it's up there, too, in the application bar. So here's the big news. So this thing here, notice I've got these two windows open, the story editor window and the actual document window. This here is essentially my tiling options. This replaces the tiling options when you're in your application frame view. And if I choose this little display option here, tile all vertically, boom. I can be working in my document, open up the story editor, and I can be viewing the layout in one tiled window, and then the story editor window is in another tiled window. Now, I could do this before with floating windows, but it was just slightly more complicated to do. This is just fast and nice and easy. Mac users, don't despair. You can turn this on or off, but I've been using it mostly on. How about you?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I got used to it very fast.
Yeah. So that's a little bit something new. There's other little subtleties and nuances, but that's the main thing you're going to need to get used to and take advantage of, because it's actually very nice. Okay, next new thing. Again, we're going very fast here. We're going because there's more. We have more new stuff in Suite Nouveau than we could possibly cover, even in all of our 5 episodes.
Oh no, we can't.
Yeah, so we're just picking and choosing here, and we're going to go very fast.
We'll do our best.
Yeah. So next thing I want to show you is the new links panel, InDesign CS4. New links panel. What we did is we re-architected, rebuilt the whole links function in InDesign from the ground up. And the first thing that you'll notice is that there's a significant cosmetic change when you get into this panel. There are little thumbnails, actual little pictures of your linked items. And that's pretty cool to be able to identify them visually, because oftentimes your linked images have rather cryptic names. They're not necessarily named to be intuitive. So now you've got little thumbnails. You can see what you're doing, or you can actually see the asset. But also notice this. Notice how some of these have little toggle arrows, little expand and collapse arrows next to them. What this means is that this asset has been used more than once in your document. So I've got the same image, but it's used multiple times. And it tells me right away that that's the case. And then what I can do, whether it's a file that's been used multiple times or just any other linked item, there's a little underlined number nearby. Well, that's a hyperlink to the page on which it's being used. And by just clicking on that hyperlink, I can jump to that page, and it selects that item for me.
Wow.
That's really useful.
Yes.
Okay, but wait, there's more. There's definitely more here, because if you're paying close attention, you might have noticed this other little toggle arrow down there.
The toggler.
The toggler. Let's toggle it. And oh, I see a whole new link info drawer that pops down if I want to see it. Boom. And this drawer contains a whole bunch more information. The name, the current status, the page location, also size, the ICC profile, all sorts of useful information about that item. And this happens to be a vector object. Let's go to a PSD file and see that the information changes to now contain information that's relevant for a raster image, a bitmap, including the actual pixels per inch versus the effective pixels per inch, which is a very important distinction.
That's
right?
kind of important for print designers, yes.
Very, very important. The effective pixels per inch tells you what the effective resolution is of your image, depending on whether or not you've scaled it once it's been in your been stuck in your layout. The actual PPI is the original scanning resolution. The effective pixels per inch is what is it? What is the resolution now based on how it's been scaled? And as you can see, that particular item has been scaled a bit and scaled up a bit, so the resolution has gone down. Let's go up into the options, because this is important. Panel options is where you control what information that you see here. Now, notice you can control the row size. You can have either large thumbnails or small ones. I like large. And I can also turn on thumbnails for both my rows up here in my regular links panel, but also in the link info portion as well. But then down here, I've got these little switches that I can throw, and I can control how many columns display in this links panel and what information is also displayed in the link info panel. And you can see there's a whole lot of stuff, including a couple of metadata fields, XMP metadata fields, that can be included as well. I'm going to add a couple of columns of information here. I'm going to add my effective pixels per inch, because I want that in my links panel. I'm also going to turn on something called folder 0. What folder 0 and folder 1 and all these folders do is it will show you the actual folder path through your directories. If I choose folder 0, it will display the name of the folder in which that asset currently resides. In this case, it's called links. And so my folder 0 is links, folder 1 is demo assets, okay? And then not only can I add columns to this display, I can also change the order in which they display there, move them back and forth, change which column displays where. But not only that, I can also choose to sort my assets based on one of these columns. So for example, I can choose to display based on my effective resolution, so that I can see from my bitmaps, they're going to be in order in the way I've got it set up now, from the lowest effective resolution to the highest one. That's a quick way to identify which ones are too low.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's just a quick intro to this new links palette, but it's very, very powerful. It's very, very useful. And That's just the end user features. There's also some great new stuff in this links architecture for developers that I'm not going to go into right now, but for all the developers out there, this links re-architecture enables you to link directly to database records and create bidirectional links from InDesign into databases and a whole lot of other things. And that's available. Information about that will be available in the InDesign SDK, but very, very powerful stuff lurking there under the hood.
Very good. So that's going to enable third-party developers to provide great solutions for editorial workflows, maybe?
Yeah, basically what we do is we have built the hooks into the application to create, to be able to connect your InDesign documents to all sorts of different types of data. It doesn't necessarily even have to be discrete files. It can be streaming content, as I mentioned, links right into databases and other things. So the developers really need to check that out because it's very, very powerful. Okay, now let's move into something having to do with layout, streamlining layout processes. And let's zoom in on this page here. And I'm going to show you how these images here got here, a newer, faster way to drop content onto your pages. Let's go back to Bridge, go into some a links folder, and I want to pull 3 images onto that page. Those same 3 images, I'm going to pull them back in. So I'm just going to pick them up and then using InDesign's multiple place feature. So now I've got 3 images loaded in my place gun, right? Now,
Is that actually the official term, Tim, the place gun? I've been asked that over and over again all across the world.
Yeah, I think
the function is called multi-place.
Well, it's always the cursor. Oh, it's always been called your place gun, whether it was held one thing or until we made it semi-auto in CS3, right?
In Germany, I always say die Platzierpistole.
They like that, and they like that, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, whatever. I mean, people should really feel free to call it whatever they wish.
Okay.
It genuinely doesn't matter to me. So now, but here's something that does matter. If I just click and drop an asset on my page, sometimes I'm surprised by how big it is. It means that I have work to do to scale this down and get it to the right size that I want in my layout. So let's undo that, and we'll show you a couple of new features here as I drop these objects on my page. So right now I've got 3 images loaded in my place gun. If I click the mouse button and I hold, you'll see 2 things right away. One is a little gray box, a little adornment on that frame that I'm drawing, which shows me the scale. Right now it's showing me live how much I've scaled this image. The other thing that it's doing is it's creating a frame, irrespective of how I drag, it's creating a frame that is scaled to the same proportion as the actual content, is the image. So as I'm dragging this out, this is the shape of that image. It's the same proportions. So now watch as I drag further, something's going to happen. Boom. Now you see that? Little smart guides that show me when I've matched the size of another object on the page.
Is that like an object that's close to it?
Yeah, it will actually check every object that's in your view. So if I'm viewing an entire spread, it will be quickly querying or quizzing every other object on the page looking for these relationships. Okay?
Awesome.
So right now, it's showing me that I match the size of the image right next to it. So there it goes. And I'll drag another one out, and we'll get the same thing. Boom, right there. And another one like that. Boom. So very quickly, I have drag those out and size them the way they want. Now watch this. If I pick one of these up, notice 2 things are showing up there. I get a smart guide drawn that shows I've aligned the centers of those objects. Then also down below, it shows me that the space is identical now between the first and third image, right?
Wow.
So this is a pretty cool little feature, okay? Smart guides will also let you match things like rotation as well. Very, very powerful feature. It will also match, it'll also reference page geometry, so it'll let you know when an image is exactly in the center of a column or in between columns. So if you've ever been tormented by having to draw rules in between columns in the gutters,
yes,
right?
I have been tormented by that, yes.
Well, who hasn't, really? But if you've been tormented by drawing, rules in between columns, now these smart guides will guide you, and it will snap exactly that. It's fantastic. It's really good. I wish we had time to show every single nuance of this, but we don't.
No, we don't.
No, we have to move on. So the next thing I'm going to show is a feature that people have been asking us for quite some time. Now, how many of us have ever had to wrestle with something like this. You have a magazine which has a standard portrait page, but you've got a spread here that's rotated, okay? Because you're supposed to view it differently.
Yeah. So you just turn your computer, right?
You just What we've been doing up to this point is we've been hiring an intern, a high school kid, to come in and actually hold our display, rotate our display.
The easy way.
Otherwise, it's not the easiest thing in the world to go in there and start, doing nice typography and tweaking things. Usually what you do is you work on it first and then you rotate it at the last minute, right? But no longer. Now in CS4, InDesign CS4, you can go up to your View menu and choose Rotate Spread. I'm going to choose to rotate this 90 degrees clockwise, and there is my spread now, rotated 90 degrees.
So it's a view thing.
It's just a view thing. It doesn't change your output or anything like that.
Great. I've heard that being asked so many times.
This is one of those things that it's a nice little convenience that everybody has wanted for a long, long time, and we've just now gotten around to doing it. And then also notice that when you rotate a spread like this, you get a little adornment in your palette, a little icon that indicates that this spread has been rotated, that you're viewing a rotated spread.
It doesn't actually rotate all spreads, just the one that's currently selected.
Well, funny you should ask that, because yes, it will work only on the spread that you've selected. But I can go into, say, I've got this calendar that I'm working on. This is a common scenario, and calendar people will love this. If I select all of the pages in this document, like so, and then go up to this menu and choose, let's say, rotate 90 degrees clockwise again. Boom. Now, the whole thing, every spread there is rotated. So I can rotate just one, or I could do the whole thing if I wanted to. But the bottom line is, it's much, much easier for you to work in these types of documents now because of that spread rotation view. Okay. Now, moving very quickly, we're going to dash off and talk a little bit about type. Two very cool new type features that we're going to cover right now. There's a couple more we're going to do in another episode, but I want to talk about one right now first. Okay, so suppose I've got text with a URL in it. This is a very, very common thing today. And suppose for the style of my magazine, I want every URL to be italicized, right? Okay, so how do you do that? Well, sometimes it's very difficult to do with a nested style. But what if there was another way to do it? There is another way to do it. Let's go into my style palette. I'm going to choose another style and watch what happens. Watch what happens to that URL. I'm going to click a different style, and boom, it gets italicized. That is because InDesign now supports styles assignments based on regular expressions. Regular expressions are ways of just searching for patterns in text. So similar to a nested style, what I'm doing is I'm telling InDesign what to look for via a regular expression and then applying an italic character style. So this is incredibly powerful. For example, M dashes. People like spaces on each side of an M dash. What if I had a style with a regular expression that automatically applies a little bit of tracking to an M dash and gives me the spaces automatically? This way I don't have to worry about adding spaces manually. Same thing with double quotes, with a single quote followed by a double quote. When you're quoting someone who's quoting someone else. Spacing those two characters is kind of a perennial nightmare. Okay, that's something that can be done with regular expressions in styles as well. The last thing that we'll look at, and then we'll switch to Illustrator, look at some new things in Illustrator, is this. Something that we've been asked for a lot in nested styles is the ability to apply a character style via a line count. Please make the first 2 lines or 3 lines another style. And so now that's in there down here on nested lines, right here. Nested lines. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, just like creating a nested style, I'm going to, let's see, I've got a small cap style. And let's just apply that for the 4 lines for the sake of argument. Click OK, and boom. There, it's done. So some very, very powerful new text features there. Let's look at some new stuff in Illustrator.
I guess you can go on hours and hours about that.
I honestly could. I have, but not now.
Okay. Let's come to my screen. And what is the first thing we see here, Tim? We're inside of Illustrator. And what do we have here?
it looks like something crazy has happened to your Illustrator because you've got multiple artboards in there.
Exactly.
And that's just not possible.
That's exactly the type of things that users have been asking for a long time. And we listen. We listen. Eventually, we do what users ask us to do, if we think it's useful, right? Or if enough users
ask and
yes.
and we can do it.
We have this possibility to have multiple artboards now in Illustrator CS4. We have the possibility to add up to 99 artboards inside of an Illustrator document.
99?
99.
That's insane.
And
who would need more than 99?
Probably people
Anybody?
maybe people who think that having multiple artboards is like a good opportunity to make a magazine layout or a brochure, which we, Tim,
well, we would officially not recommend that.
We
because,
highly do not recommend
no.
that. Okay, that's not the point here. Multiple artboards is for something exactly like this, where we have different types of documents. For example, a poster, a postcard, and then we have maybe some graphics for a DVD. And so we can prepare all these things inside of a single document. And the other thing that is really great in this new version of Illustrator is that we're going to be working with symbols more and more. Because, for example, if we zoom into this area right here for the poster and these postcards here, what we can see is that this guy here, for example, is a symbol. Okay? And we can find him right here in the symbols library here. And we see that it's right here. And what does that mean? Using a symbol of that illustration on all of our artboards allows us to modify that symbol and propagate the modifications on all of our artboards. So for example, if I double-click on that symbol, we're going to go into isolation mode, and I will be able to work on this guy. For example, changing the colors. Let's use live color, for example, and go to Edit and link the colors together and make them all brighter maybe, like so, and changing the colors of the artwork itself. And when I say OK, and I go back into my artwork, we will see that all instances of that symbol actually have been changed. Okay? It's a whole new way of working on different artboards with elements that repeat themselves. Or if I take this lady here, for example, I can open it directly from the symbols panel as well. If I double-click on Dame, I go to the symbol. And for example, if I select it all and go here into live color again and say I want the colors to be reduced to maybe 2 colors, I'm actually changing that, the appearance of that artwork. And I say OK, and go back to my illustration. Boom. This has been applied to all of the instances on my multiple artboards. Is that cool or what?
Yeah, that's really powerful. That's really great.
It's also a great way to ensure that, that we share the same swatches, the same graphic styles, the same symbol libraries, all inside of a single Illustrator document. Okay, so we can be sure we're working with the same colors on all of our iterations. Is that the correct word?
Yeah, iterations. Yes. Yeah, sure, that would work.
Iterazioni.
Thank you.
Iterations. Yes.
So there you go. Some Italian concept.
So for example, if I take this text here, okay, and I double-click on it, we find out that this is a symbol as well. And that's the other thing I wanted to point out, is that the appearance panel has been completely redesigned. Okay? So if we open the appearance panel, we can now control stroke, fill, opacity, and all the effects that we can add inside of the appearance panel. Actually, I did a whole episode on the appearance panel in season 1 of Caffè Fibonacci.
Because not enough people take advantage of it, right?
Exactly. And when I'm in a room full of people and maybe 90% of the users say, I'm an Illustrator user, and then I ask who uses the appearance panel, maybe 3 or 4%.
That's the kind of thing that makes an evangelist cry himself to sleep at night, isn't it?
It does.
When you see that kind of thing.
It really troubles me. And what I like in Illustrator CS4 is that the appearance panel has become a central part of working with graphic elements inside of the application. So for example, if I select this symbol here, I can go into the contents, and we see that we actually have a 3D extrude and bevel effect applied to that. And this is what gives this 3D effect to the text. Or the opacity is the default opacity, so why not add very quickly a style, for example, a drop shadow. Let's go and preview that very quickly and see if that could work. Okay, little drop shadow under my text, and say OK. And as soon as I go back to my artwork, we'll see that this drop shadow has now been applied to all of the instances of that symbol. It's a whole new way of working, and I'm really excited to start working in that way with these multiple artboards and using symbols that way. And the appearance panel,
which has been significantly remodeled. Would you say it's a lot easier to use now?
It's a lot easier to use, also because I can choose what to see in the appearance panel. A little bit like Photoshop. For example, if we reopen that and reopen that symbol, and I say, okay, show me this without. Let's go into let's select it and let's open the contents. And if I want to remove the drop shadow, I don't have to delete it. I can just hide it. Okay, I can toggle the visibility of that effect. I can still keep it in there. So when I go back, I will have removed the drop shadow in all of my graphics, but it's not showing anymore. But I can go back to it at any time. The other thing that's been worked on is the ability to work with gradients. And that's also very exciting. For example,
this is a really cool feature.
Yeah, let's take this graphic, for example, that's been designed here. We see that there's a gradient being applied here. And this gradient, obviously, is being applied through the gradient panel. Okay, it's a linear gradient. Here we have colors. But the really neat thing is that if I use the gradient tool, we actually have access to the gradient controls on the graphic itself. So if I start moving this...
It's a WYSIWYG handle.
It's a WYSIWYG handle. And you see, if I go here, for example, I can rotate the gradient, okay, and it's real-time changes here. I can make the gradient longer or shorter, okay? And if I double-click on these swatches here, I can actually go right into the color and change the color. And we see that this is a Pantone color, for example. If we go to this other color here, that's a CMYK color. Okay, so it's a gradient from a CMYK to a Pantone color. But the other very interesting thing that we can do is instead of using the background color here to make this gradient, what we can do is change the opacity. And this is new in CS4, is that I can go from a color to transparency. Okay, like in InDesign CS3 that was implemented with gradient feather.
Yeah,
it's very similar to that. This way, I can very, very quickly work on gradients. That's also very cool, very, very intuitive.
That's a really nice enhancement.
Yes. And you know what, Tim? I think this is it for today's episode. Like we said at the beginning, we have so many things to show and so little time to show them that we're going to be showing a lot more in future episodes of Caffè Fibonacci. But before we part, Tim, let's cheer again for Suite Nouveau.
Suite Nouveau, CS4. See you next time for more CS4 features.
Bye-bye.